So you know when you're an absolute badass, you always listen to badass tracks, badass songs, and only badass bands, but every now and then you want to listen to some wimpy tunes? You want to take it down a notch, but you don't want your friends to know that you're listening to wimpy tunes? You ever wish those wimpy bands could just have a badass logo so you could have it on a badass shirt or on a badass record cover? You ever thought about that? In this video, I'm going to show you how. First up, the Carpenters, or Carpenters. It's not the Carpenters. I thought it was the Carpenters. It's Carpenters. So this is their logo. Honestly, it's nice, but obviously it's not badass enough. We got to toughen it up a little bit. We got to be real badass. So I'm thinking we could lean into the symmetrical situation here and just make it like a metal logo, right? Let's just start sketching. We will just sketch over their logo, and then maybe it could like kind of come into the middle. Could be like metal S. I don't know, maybe we need to like exaggerate it to make it more spiky, so like we could have it come up like that and down. Keeping it real loose at this stage so I can just sort of like figure out the spacing for these letters. I mean, it's already looking pretty badass. To keep that symmetry, I think I'm going to use the symmetry tool to just sort of get the overall shape and then do individual letters based on that. Yeah, so, you know, this is basically the same logo. We're just saying, hey, if this was a little bit more tough, a little bit more badass, what would it look like? It's already fitting together. So I need to stop using symmetry, obviously, because that's not the same on this side, but it is helping me realize that that A and the R are almost the same letter, so we can sort of work that to our advantage. So before I turn off symmetry, I just want to get some like little shapes that may influence how it looks, like those two spikes there. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's gonna happen. All right, I'm gonna take this structure and just sort of noodle around and finesse it and get it to a good place, and I will check back in with you. Once I got this Carpenter's lettering looking pretty good in the sketch, I started doing the tightened up line work. I used the vector brushes for this one because I wanted to get those like really sharp points to really accentuate how sharp and just badass, definitely not wimpy this is. So I could use the vector trimming to just draw through the points, swipe them off, and just get the sharpest possible point, because we are overcompensating here and trying to show that we are very badass. You know, this isn't real toxic masculinity here, right? I'm not afraid to admit that I can get down with the Carpenters. What are we talking about again? This process looks a little messy because of all the vector trimming, but I think it ended up in a good place. Feeling good about this one. It's gonna blend right in with any of the other badass albums you might have on your shelf. Let's do another one. For Elton John, I thought we could switch things up, go a little bit more punk rock. I thought we could just lean into the whole UK thing and emulate the Sex Pistols logo and just do it for Elton John. I grabbed the logo off the internet. You can find anything on the internet, it's crazy. I selected the letters that I could use here and just sort of copy and pasted them and moved them down, shifted them around and tried to figure out how close I could get to getting a good composition with just the existing letters. I traced over existing letters to make new letters. For example, the T, I traced over that and then added a little tail onto it to make it a J so that it was sort of matching the lettering styles that we have going on here. Once I got all the letters, I tried to figure out how to put them into it like a good composition that had the visual rhythm that the Sex Pistols logo has, and just sort of like make it look as irreverent and just sort of like quickly pasted together, but also somehow balanced like the original. So I played around with size, shifted things, just tried to get it in a place that had the same aesthetic as the Sex Pistols logo. After that, I just grouped it all together, brought down the transparency, and then traced it over so that it was all in consistent line work. I made it a little bit gritty to sort of emulate the photocopy look that exists in the Sex Pistols logo. I mean, if you think about it, Elton John's kind of punk rock anyway. Doesn't seem like it now, but let's do another one. All right, the next one is Barry Manilow. I don't even know why I did this one. I just thought it would be the most ridiculous musician to have a just really crusty metal logo. So that's what I did. This was just to make me laugh, I think. So the first thing that I did was just write out the letters very simply in bold and like tall, skinny letters and just try to get it centered because I wanted it to, you know, have one of those like symmetrical metally logos, but also it was gonna be really crusty. So once I got the letters spaced out and like the height situation going on, I just sort of did some like wiggly flame things on top of that. One of the issues I first ran into was having this like center point in the middle that I wanted to, it was like throwing off the balance. There was like the N and it was like off to one side. So I was trying to like move that around to see if I could get that point of the N into the center. It wasn't happening. I had to switch things up a little bit and change it so that it just sort of worked without having that center point. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, so I just turned on the symmetry and played around with some like different reflected shapes. Instead of having like one point in the center, having 2 points on each side, kept that same balance and that same like spiky metally logo, and worked better with the letters and gave me some more flexibility in fitting them all in there together. I thought this one was gonna be a lot easier, but it ended up being a little bit of a hassle. It just got really confusing because I couldn't see what was happening because the letters were so crazy and had so many different like things coming off of them and different wiggly shapes and smashed together, and they were really long letters. So I thought I was doing the Titans line work a couple times, but had to use that as another step in the process to get it closer to where I wanted it to be. So it was just sort of like iterating and iterating until it was somewhat legible and looking badass. Eventually I got there. This is Barry Manilow. Does anyone even know who I'm talking about? Why didn't I do this with like contemporary musicians? Do I even think about these ideas? What am I even doing? Next up is Steely Dan. For this one, I thought we should just do the opposite again and make the Steely Dan logo look like the Slayer logo, because why not? I don't know, they both start with an S, maybe that's all it took. This was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. I just sort of sketched out the letter forms, pretty much copying the existing letters that were in Slayer, like the S obviously, and the E, and the A, and then just sort of tried to space it out in a way that looked like it could be like the Slayer logo. Obviously the Slayer logo is on one line, Steely Dan is 2 lines. Could have done it all on one line, but I felt like this sort of rhythm worked well and had the angles going across. So once I sketched it out pretty tight, I wanted it to have that geometric, consistent line thickness that the Slayer logo had. So I did this one with the vector brushes as well, and drew out the 2 lines for the T, and then just sort of like duplicated it and used that same thing for as many of the letters as I could, and then merged those all together, and then did another one for the other angles until I had everything, and then I just sort of like chopped off all the extra stuff until it all matched and worked together well. I think these all have been working pretty well so far. I think we were doing what we set out to do. What is that again? What are we doing? But yeah, but why? All right, for this last one, I'm gonna do a band that's semi-contemporary. This is Belle and Sebastian, a band that I really like. And I thought for this one, we'd just do some bold, gritty letters for Belle, because it's a short name. And then we'll do some thinner letters for Sebastian. Just sort of started sketching this out, playing around, seeing what was gonna work and what would fit together. The Belle, pretty straightforward, just ended up getting this sort of like curved shape. So I wanted to lean into that and push it a little bit further and make it more intentional. So I like drew some guides to sort of fit it to that shape. And then the more that I sort of pushed it and tried to make it symmetrical like the other logos, I started to hate it. And it was just not working for me. So instead of scrapping the idea altogether, I just sort of went back to the earlier sketch that I had done and just tried to push it in the opposite way and make it a little bit more asymmetrical and have a little less forced symmetry. So keeping that same vibe of like the chunky letters on the top and the thinner letters on the bottom, I just sort of tried to have it be almost symmetrical, but like a little bit off kilter, just to, I don't know, sort of have like a mix between like that sort of symmetrical metal thing, but then like a little bit of a punk rock, stamped, gritty, just like sort of skewed, imperfect look. And I liked this one better. So as I tightened it up, I refined the letters a little bit, just sort of making them fit together a little bit more, sharpened up sharpened up the letters, give them a little bit more of an edge, a little bit of like a cut, chopped, distressed look. I ended up making the Sebastian letters a little bit chunkier, a little bit pointier, a little bit more punch. Once I got this to a pretty good place, I thought it would look better if it was more textured, more distressed. So I took the line work and loaded it as a selection. Well, first I made the background black because I wanted to make it white distressed onto the black. I loaded the lettering as a selection, and then I used a couple different texture brushes to just sort of lay in texture until the selection was filled to a point where the letters were legible. And then I went in and just sort of like messed up the edges a little bit, added in a little bit more distress and texture on top of it so that it looked a little bit more natural, a little bit more like overspray or like a misprint type situation. And you know, I think it turned out pretty good. What did you think about this this journey, this challenge, this I don't know. To be honest, I started drawing one of these and I was like, oh, this would be a fun video, and didn't give it any much more thought than that until I had the idea for the intro, and here we are. Do you like challenges like this? Which of these is your favorite? Did you know I did another video where I did 50 band logos in 4 hours? That's 5 minutes each. That's a video that you can watch. You could go watch it right now, actually. You have any other bands you need me to make a little bit more badass for you? I could do it. Just leave me suggestions on the bottom. Maybe I'll do another one of these. This could be a series. Good talk? Okay, bye. Thank you.